I've been itching to crack out the sewing machine again, and I need a tote bag, so that is exactly what we're going to do today. I'm going to try and make up a little tote bag for myself and get to use this beautiful machine once more. Now, the last time I did a sewing project, I stole an entire tablecloth, but this time, this tablecloth is actually just far too big, so I can just trim off the end, and I'll end up with a whole bunch of fabric to use. After a bit of scissoring, I'm left with a perfectly good tablecloth, as well as a whole chunk of fabric to use. With the fabric sourced, I can try and figure out how I'm going to construct this bag, and I am just completely making it up. I've just decided to try and figure it out for myself, because I think that's a really rewarding process. With a bit more scissor action, I'm left with the main piece for the bag, 2 strips for the handles, as well as a little flap for a pocket. And I've still got a heap of fabric left over. Now, it's been a while since I've used this machine, but thankfully I've still got the original instruction manual so I can remember or relearn how to thread the machine, which is a longer process than you might think. And with that all set up, I could get my first stitches underway. Thank you so much for all the lovely comments that I've been getting, and of course a massive thank you to the members of the channel. They help me to be able to make these videos, and if you want to help support the channel so I can keep making videos like this one, then click the join button below and see what's on offer. Look, it's not great, but we're getting back into it, so it's okay. Although I might do it again. There's a practice. Well, it's not as bad as I thought, to be honest. I thought it was more wonky than it is, but it's it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. With that decision made, I could use my sausage fingers to wrangle the thread into some knots while simultaneously completely blocking your view. In my last sewing project, I didn't pay very good attention to the seams, and I ended up with a lot of raw fabric edges all around the place. So with this project, I really want to focus on making the seams really good. And to that end, I was pinning out the pocket to try and keep all of the hems in place. And you'll notice I've got all of the pins sticking straight up. And I was going to pin this to the main body piece and try and sew it all in one go, but I figured actually that's going to be far too difficult. So what I ended up doing was actually just sewing these hems first and then attaching the pocket to the main body, but that meant that the pins are all facing the wrong way around, and it made it really tricky to get them out again. I was also just using far too many pins, and so I eventually realized that I could just take out a whole bunch, which made it a lot smoother of a process. I'm not sure who needs to hear this, maybe this is just for myself, but it's completely okay to make it up and experiment. I feel like there's a lot of pressure these days because there's so many experts out there that will tell you you're doing things incorrectly, and getting tips is absolutely wonderful, but it's also okay to just bumble your way through things and figure things out for yourself. With a bit of treadle work, I had the pocket hemmed out and I could figure out where I was going to attach it. And again, I'm just eyeballing this, completely winging it. I'm sure that I'm doing things that are completely antithesis to how a proper sewist would do it. But, I mean, that's part of the fun of experimenting, is you can just make it up. I had the pocket in a place that I thought was going to be good, so I just stitched it on. The rhythm that the machine makes, I find very soothing. I don't know, I think I find a lot of these processes soothing. I don't know if that's just a me thing, but the mechanical sound is really lovely. And there we go, the pocket's on. We're looking good. The next task is to sew the sides of the bag together to make it into an actual enclosed bag. So, confession time. I got about halfway through doing this seam when I realized that I need to actually do this top seam first, so that when I flip this over, it's all nice and neat at the top. So I had to undo that, and then I could go along here, and I just did that off camera because it's just a really long, straight, boring stitch. Although I did run into some issues with that, but I've sorted it all out now, and now I can finish this seam off. And then we'll basically have the bag done. Just need to do these two sides, and then the bag is basically done. We just do the two sides, whack some handles on it, and it's all done. My original attempt to do these side seams actually was not very neat, so redoing them was a good thing in the end as well, because I could make sure I was paying attention to getting the seam allowance right and whatnot, and they came out looking really good. Flipping it inside out, or
outside in, no, outside out, reveals the shape of the bag and the little pocket within. Then the last thing to do is some handles. I could pin my little strips into the shape required, and I'm doing them inside out, which I think is smart because then the seam is on the inside, and then I can just flip them the right side out. Flipping them right side out is easier said than done, especially when your fingers are as dexterous as mine. But I did come up with a little trick. I've got some really long knitting needles that I could use to assist me in my task. Now, make sure you do the pointy side out, because otherwise you'll probably just rip and tear your fabric. But they did the job, and now I've got 2 handles that I can attach to my bag. Making up what seems about right to me, I could figure out where I wanted the handles and stitch them on. In an effort to make these seams nice and neat, I folded the ends of these tubes back in on themselves so that there's no raw edge of the fabric exposed. And then I could just take my time to stitch these handles on.
Oh, no. That was a close one.
I stitched in a little box and then crisscrossed over the middle to hopefully create what will be a nice strong handle joint. All of this is done by just winding the wheel by hand because the treadle will go way too fast for me to do this, so yeah, just taking it nice and slow with the handle.
Shit. Oh, I was so careful the first time as well. I'm just I'm just sewing the bag together. Shit. Got it. There we go. Alright. We can open the bag again. Good. Take 2.
Take 2 went a lot more smoothly. I think just when you're learning anything new, like this is the second sewing project I've ever done, there's just so many things to keep track of that it's easy to miss them, but thankfully you can just go back and redo them. And the second one came out looking really good. And in the end, I got pretty quick at stitching on the handles.
Last stitch. There we go. There was no bag, and now there is bag. Hey!
I'm really happy with how this came out. I'm super proud of the fact that I just made it up. In this case, the experimentation turned out really well, and I'm so happy with it, but, I mean, experimentation, part of it is failure, and that's completely okay. I'm really happy with how all the seams turned out. That was a focus of mine going into this, and I think they came out looking really good. There's not one single exposed bit of raw fabric edge in the whole thing. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday period, and I hope to see you again soon.